Hey, so in this video, I'm going to give a quick introduction to the most common things that you want to do in Licks to write a paper or a report. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start with this folder that has this file, brand new Licks. So this is going to be a brand new Licks file, and I'm going to sort of show how you input stuff into this file. And there's a few other files in this folder, and I'll explain what those are in a second. And I kind of recommend this sort of folder structure. So we have some images here in this subfolder. We have some LaTeX tables in this subfolder as well. We have here a style file that's going to tell Licks how to organize our references. And we have here a bibtech file, which I'm going to open using this free software BibDesk. And it has a bunch of references. And I'm going to show how you add references to our list of references and also to the file. So the first thing you probably want to do when you start a new Licks file, which by the way you can do using this icon here, you can start a brand new Licks file, is to check the settings of the file. So we go here to Document and Settings, and we see here a long list of things. We have here our document class, so article is the standard thing to do there. We have here a list of modules. So typically this will be empty, and you want to select some of the modules to include. So these are packages in LaTeX. To start, I think just these two are enough. So the way you do this is, of course, you scroll down, you pick the ones you want, and then you select Add here when that is available. So I'm choosing the American Mathematical Society kind of package, which has a bunch of environments like theorems and lemmas and stuff. And then I'm also adding the extended version of that. And these are both numbered by type, which means that we're going to get theorem 1, 2, 3, but then lemma 1, 2, 3, as opposed to like theorem 1 and then lemma 2 and then theorem 3. This local layout I don't recommend messing with very much. We have here something for fonts. So sometimes you get some LaTeX errors that go away by clicking this little box here, use non-text fonts, and you'll see an error come up that way. You can see your font family and the default font size for your document. And these are all things that if you're writing standard LaTeX code are going to show up at the start of your file. We have our indentation or standard indentation for the text. So line spacing, we can choose 1/2 or double or whatever. And the indentation for our paragraphs as well. We can choose here if we want a 2-column document or not. The page layout, whether we want A0 or A4, etc. Again, I don't really recommend changing this very much. Your page margins in inches, language you're using, colors, bibliography, or so the table of contents and the numbering. So you can choose here what kinds of things show up in your table of contents. So whether you're adding subsections to the table of contents or subsections, etc. How your bibliography works. I think this natbib bibtext is what we'll be using, and the variant is going to be author year. And there's the bibtext style. I typically choose plain nat here, so that's going to be important for the literature, for the references at the end of the file. Indices are not super important. PDF properties also not. Math options, I would also leave this as default. You can change here how your bullet points show up, but again, I just use the default here. And here is the rest of your LaTeX preamble. So I'm just going to add a few packages and options here. So I add this package Utopia, which makes the font kind of nice. And I'm adding these packages here, which create a bunch of symbols. Also adding this hyperref package, which lets me change the colors of the links. And I'm using this particular color scheme, but this is not very important for a basic thing. Also adding this line, which means that the date does not show up automatically at the start of the file. So that's all the settings for our file. And once this is all set up, we can actually get started writing stuff. And so once that's set up, we would go to our main document and we would write, for instance, title of the paper. And once you have that, you can either select it or just leave the cursor on the same line, and you select what environment you want this to be. And so we can select, for instance, title. And we can sort of see how the PDF version of this would be looking like by clicking on this little icon here. And we see that we're getting an empty document with title of the paper here. We can further add some author names here. And again, we do something very similar. You can either select them or keep the cursor in the same line and choose here authors. You can also use a shortcut to compile the PDF. That would be Command R in Mac. And so if you do that, so you get the title of the paper and the author names. Maybe I'll change the author names to my own paper. This is sort of, some fancy. Great. At this stage, we could add a date or not. We could add an abstract for the paper. So again, we just select what we want. Abstract here. We can add some extra text, but maybe that's not super important. So this will be the first page of the document. And again, we can compile this and see that it compiles quite nicely. So we can just add some nonsense text here. Then what I would probably think about doing is inserting a page break. So we can add new page here. That's great. So that will create a new page. And then we can also add a table of contents if you're interested in that. So that table of contents there. And then we insert again, maybe a new page. And nothing's going to show up on the table of contents right now because we don't have any sections. So we could sort of create a few sections here by just typing the section title. And then again, just leave the cursor, or if you want to select it, then we can call this a section. So these are numbered sections, and the ones with the asterisks are unnumbered sections. So we're going to call this section 1. We can just copy paste that and create section 2. This might be the literature review, and section 3 might be, for instance, the model. Okay. So we can add a little something if we want here. And the reason I'm doing this is because now our sections are going to show up in our contents, right? So we have here contents, introduction, literature review, and model. And we have our contents of the paper. We can, of course, add some subsections as well. So we could do, in the model, we could do the model setup, and then we could do main results. So again, go here, select subsection, add some text there, and then your main results, we create another subsection, and we compile this document again so that you have our model setup, main results, etc. Okay. So the next thing we might want to create is a bibliography at the end of the paper. And so what we're going to do is, so we're going to go to the end of our article, and we're going to insert BibTeX bibliography here. It's going to ask us where is it going to be pulling our references from, and that's where this BibTeX file is going to come in handy. So we're going to add this, browse, and add this, and tell Lix that this is where it should be pulling its references from. We've selected here our style. You can choose whether or not to add the bibliography to the table of contents, and added all references. So we see here that we just get this little box saying BibTeX generated bibliography. So we don't have any references in the document right now, but we will add them very soon. And so one thing that you might want to do is just start your bibliography in a new page. So you again add new page, and you can, once you've done this once, you can sort of do this very easily by just copy pasting. Okay, so we can add some references now. So we could, we would do that by going to this little icon here that says, oh, actually this icon here that says insert citation. And what Lix is going to do is open this little menu that shows all the citations in our BibTeX file. So we could just add here the reference to the BLP paper. We can choose the citation style. Over here, there's a bunch of different citation styles. You can also add some extra text, say page 17. It's going to show you more or less how things are going to look like. You can also say all authors or not. So it's quite flexible, and we can also add multiple different references in the same citation, right? So this is just exactly like LaTeX. So this is just one reference, but we could add sort of two references in the same citation, and if we compile this, it's going to show up these. It's going to show these references sort of in a nice blue color because we set that in the preamble, and it's going to automatically populate our list of references. So that's, in a nutshell, how you would add references to Lix. Something else you might be interested in doing is starting an appendix. The way you do that is you just go to the very end of your document, and you go to Documents, Start Appendix here. You would start an appendix, and then you again just create sections within your appendix if you want to, and Lix will automatically start labeling these as letters as opposed to numbers. And again, you add some text, you add a different section or subsection. And you continue writing your this way. And if you compile, you will see that after your references, your appendix shows up with all the text that you want. So one thing I forgot to mention is that I do recommend that your bib file is in the same folder. It doesn't have to be, so you can specify any location for it, but it just makes things easier if it's within the same folder as your Lix file, because then if you're changing any folder paths or anything like that, your PDF won't stop compiling. So it just makes things a little bit easier and not, it doesn't sort of make things any messier with your folder structure. So that's what I would recommend. Okay, so something else that you might be interested in doing is, of course, adding some math. That's very easy to do. So the standard shortcut in Lix, in Mac at least, is Command M. If you press Command M, it opens this little math box. And so then it works just like LaTeX. So you can type \alpha, and LaTeX will turn it into alpha. So you can do that. If you do Command Shift M, then you have a displayed equation in the center. And then again, things work exactly like LaTeX. You just type in LaTeX commands, like you add a fraction, here you add an integral. You say f of x dx. And here you could type, for instance, log of x equals pi, something like that. For subscripts and superscripts, for superscripts, you just press Shift and 6. So that's just the little hat symbol. So this is exactly like LaTeX. You're going to something like that. And for subscripts, it's again exactly the same thing as LaTeX. Just press Shift and dash. So it's sort of underscore, and you type in whatever you want. Again, the summation indexes and things like that work exactly like in LaTeX. You can type a sum, and then you press underscore, and that's going to give you the thing at the bottom, and then you sort of do superscore, do the thing at the top. So this is, broadly speaking, how math works in LaTeX. There are also these menus that can be quite useful. So you can go to View here and show all the toolbars. So we could see, for instance, the math toolbar that will help you add square roots and superscripts and subscripts and displayed equations and fractions and things like that. But, you know, and so this is useful, but you can also just do this using the shortcuts. And if you open a math environment, it'll sort of automatically open these kinds of useful menus. So you can add spaces here, for instance. So you could do and add a space, do something like that. We have all your Greek letters and funky symbols, exactly like in LaTeX. So if you sort of forget what exactly is the LaTeX code for this wacky symbol, Lix will tell you that it's prac n approx. We have these sort of matrix completion ones. So lots of stuff just that you can pick up right at your fingertips, as they say. So another thing you might want to do in Lix is to add images or tables. And the way you do that is you go to Insert, Float, and you can pick whether you want to insert an algorithm, a figure, or a table, or whatever. So we will add a figure. It inserts this float here. Already there's a caption for this figure. And then up here, we just pressed enter, and we can add the figure. So there's a few different ways of doing this. So if you want to just use Lix, you go to Insert and Graphics. And so again, I recommend that you have all your images neatly put into a subfolder of your Lix documents. So we go here to images, we go to demand, we can scale this up and make it just 20% of the size. And then we might want to center this image. So one way to do it is go to this menu here that sets all your paragraph stuff. So you could center the image here, or you could just do Command Option C, which is a shortcut for centering stuff in Lix. And so we would have our image here. We also can right click here, and there's a bunch of settings. So we can change the type of float. We can either use the default placement or choose whether we want it here definitely, or we want it at the top of the page or the bottom of the page. So there's a bunch of other options here. So I'm just going to use the default placement for this one. And we see here that if we compile, we have our image here and the caption for the image. So another way that you could include images is just using pure LaTeX code. In fact, you can just use that anywhere in Lix. The way you do that is you either click on this little button here, or it'll show you the shortcut there. It's Command L. Press Command L will sort of open a pure LaTeX box. And then you can just add your pure LaTeX command. We can again center this, and we can comment this out by using one of these nifty licks notes. So this is just now effectively commented out. And well, maybe let's leave it in so you see that both of these images get inserted. And so you can just insert stuff using pure LaTeX code. And in fact, you could just use that really anywhere. For instance, we could write some math here using pure LaTeX. You could at any point write some regular text and then open pure LaTeX window by pressing Command L, write whatever you want, just pure LaTeX, math, or whatever. And Lix is just going to input that as pure LaTeX. And so if you compile that, we see that we just get like your standard LaTeX kind of output. So you could do that anywhere in the document. You can create sections and subsections using that. So really Lix is just a front, and what's happening in the background is pure LaTeX code that's being compiled in the regular way. And it's just a way to make things possibly a little bit easier and smoother. So another thing that we might want to do is add tables. So again, we insert float. In this case, it's a table. Again, we have a caption for this table. If we want to do that, we can just press backspace and remove the caption, the table. And again, there's several ways of doing that, but one might be to use pure LaTeX. And so what I've done here is I've just included a new float in a table. I've actually changed this table to be here definitely because that's compatible with the LaTeX code in the table itself. And I'm going to just input the LaTeX code for this table, which I have put in this subfolder here of our main folder. Here's under tables, table 1. You see that when I compile the document, I get a little error, but one nice thing about Lix is that most of the time it will still compile things, even if there are these little errors, so it kind of fix things for you. So you can just go ahead and select Show Output Anyways. We go to our tables, and we see here a summary statistics table. We could add a caption to it as well. So caption for this table. And another thing we could do is actually add a reference. So that's something that's very useful in LaTeX. If you want to refer to a particular table, you can add a reference. The way you do that in Lix is you use this nice little tag symbol, insert label, and you could call this table summary stats or something like that. So now this particular object is labeled. You could put this in the center, but it doesn't really matter very much. You could also add a label to our figure here. This would be figure demand 1 or something like that. And we would be able to refer to these anywhere in our document by doing so. For instance, refer to figure, and then we would select this little guy here, insert cross-reference, and give us a list of all the cross-references we have. We insert here figure demand 1, or we could add C table, and we refer to table 1. And of course, when we compile this document, so we can have our text here with a little link to the correct image and the correct table. Of course, if we add more tables and the number of the table changes, LIX is going to automatically adjust all that, much like LaTeX does. One nice thing is that LIX keeps track of how everything is labeled. So if you ever want to just change this particular label and call it demand 123, it's going to automatically update it throughout your document to make sure everything stays in place. So if you change this to summary stats 123, you see that this has been automatically updated everywhere in the document that references this particular object. You could do the same thing with equations, in fact. So suppose we pick this displayed equation, we add a reference to it. So this could be sort of main equilibrium condition or something like that. And go here, select main equilibrium condition. And we can actually right-click on this and change what the style of the reference is. So maybe if we want parentheses around the number of the equation, we could add that. And so if we compile the document again, we see that we have our numbered equation here and this sort of nice reference to it. So I think these are some of the main things you'd want to do with LIX. So hopefully this was useful, and thank you very much.